Welcome, everyone, to the Secret of Oneness. I know that you all know me because we're one. For those of you who are still asleep, my name is Stephen, and tonight's topic that we're going to discuss is called the mindset that blocks manifestation and how to end it now. So I like to start off with a quote by Neville Goddard, and this is actually a scripture from Ephesians 4, and I'm actually going to talk about some of the scriptures from Ephesians 4 as well. But Neville says here, put off the former conversation, the old man, which is corrupt, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Put on the new man, which is created in righteousness. Now that's Ephesians 4:22 through 24. I think he kind of took bits and pieces of that. But what I want you to focus on here, just for a second, it says to put off the former conversations, the old man, which is corrupt. He's saying that it's corrupted. The old man and your old conversations are corrupt. Okay? And you have to renew in the spirit of your mind. And we're going to talk about that here. And that quote from Neville is in his book, Awakened Imagination, chapter 5, The Coin of Heaven. And so let's get into the scriptures that I'm going to break down here. And I want to remind you, as I always do, when you're manifesting, you're not creating anything from nothing. This isn't like pixie dust, we're not doing magic tricks, okay? And I may sound repetitive, and a lot of my videos may regurgitate the same information with different scriptures. But what I'm trying to do is to get you to recognize that everything comes from your identity. Yes, you can affirm things, you can script things, you can do imaginal acts, and you can get a free cup of coffee, you can get certain things. But what I'm trying to get you into is an identity that always gets everything, that you get it all, because you are all things, okay? So my perspective is to give you everything, not just little nuggets along the way that people... A lot of these coaches, they'll teach you how to, write this down and affirm this and all of those things. And those things are great. The techniques are there for a reason, but the techniques are supposed to point you to who you already are. They're not to create something. So if you're saying affirmations, and you don't truly believe them, then it's really doing you no good. And you're doing it from a place of lack. You're doing it from the place of the carnal man, which is what Neville was talking about here when he quoted Ephesians, when he says, the former conversations, the old man, which is corrupt. You cannot speak affirmations from a corrupt old man. You'll just get a corrupt identity, okay? So let's move into the scripture here. So Ephesians 4:17 through 18, it says, so I say this and affirm to the Lord, and affirm in the Lord, that you are no longer to walk just as the Gentiles also walk in the futility of their minds, being darkened in their understanding, excluded from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the hardness of their heart. So what does all that mean? Well, this is extremely powerful because it's going to show you all of the blocks that's causing you to not get your manifestation. And again, I don't want to sound like one of those coaches who promise all of these things and that you have blocks and you have all these issues. What I'm going to reveal to you is that you're just basically not flowing correctly, okay? So let's go through the scriptures really quick and break some of this down to make it a little bit more understanding, because I believe that manifesting comes from the scriptures. That's the master manifesting book, okay? And the reason that I believe that is because the entire concept of the New Testament or the New Covenant with Christ is he's showing you, he demonstrates how to go from the old identity to the new identity. And a majority of the scriptures in the New Testament all talk about your identity, but they're given in different formats. They're given in different texts. They're given in different explanations. Sometimes they're in parables, but it's really talking about Christ in you. God is in you, that you're one, and that you have all the same power. So that's why it's really important that I teach from the scriptures instead of just getting on here and telling you to affirm 100 times, or if you just write things down 50,000 times, you'll get your manifestation. Yeah, you might get the manifestation, but you have not changed. Your life has not changed. The core principles in yourself have not changed. And that's what I want to change is your core principles, okay? So the first word here is walk in Ephesians 4:17. So I say this and affirm in the Lord that you are to no longer walk. And walk means just how you conduct yourselves, okay? Just as the Gentiles also walk. And the Gentiles here, back in the scriptures, they talked about the Jews and the Gentiles. And the Jews were just people who believed in God, essentially. And the Gentiles were a common culture or a nation that usually didn't believe, okay? It was just a custom. They didn't believe in God. So it goes on here. It says, in the futility of their minds. So the word futility is interesting because it says here, it's Greek 31:53, and it means aimlessness due to lacking purpose or motive or any meaningful end. Nonsense because of transitory. When I read that, I thought that was interesting because it's like a person who's a transient who goes from place to place with no purpose. Okay? So when you're walking in the futility of your mind, right? Your mind is the mental capacity to exercise reflective thinking. Okay? It's the reasoning, it's the logic, and it's telling you to not walk in the transient mind that just wanders around and doesn't produce anything, which is what you're going to get. And this is why when Neville mentioned in Ephesians 4:22-24, he says to put off the former conversations, the old man, which is corrupt. That corrupted mind is a transient mind that just goes back and forth and back and forth. And I'm going to touch on that here in a second because it's very interesting that it gets mentioned in verse 18 as well. And going back and forth is exactly how it's described. So what I have here is that this is revealing that you're not to conduct your life unbelieving, being like a transient in your thinking. This is all logic and 3D perspective. Okay, so that's part of this. That's the first scripture. But I want to take a second here and remind everybody that in my old ministry, I did a 5-part series on the imagination, and I broke it all down in Hebrew, and I taught on how the imagination is basically like the temple and how the imagination works and all that good stuff. And in the process, recently, I took those 5 video teachings that I did, and I put them into ebooks. So anybody who hasn't gone to my website, The Secret of Oneness, you can go under the ebook, and those imagination series are under there with some other manifesting books that I've created, and there's some free samples on there, so go ahead and check that out, okay? All right, let's move on to verse 18. Verse 18 says, being darkened in their understanding, excluded from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the hardness of their heart. So notice that it's saying that the hardness of their heart is because of the ignorance that's in them, okay? And because of that, you're excluded from the life of God, and your understanding is darkened. So let's talk about this here. Let's get into what being darkened means. And that means, and it's Greek 46:56, and it's the word skatu, and it means to darken. And figuratively, it says to produce a condition of moral and spiritual darkness. It's obscurity, it's blindness. Okay, and that's very important because spiritual darkness is you're not able to see in the unseen, because that's what the spiritual realm is. It's the unseen. So if you have spiritual darkness, then you cannot see the unseen, which means you're always going to be living from the seen realm, the physical reality, the 3D. And we don't live there. And I'm going to show you this, why we don't want to live there. The word understanding, and when I mentioned about going back and forth, this is very interesting. The word understanding in Greek is 1271, and it's the word dianoia, and it means thoroughly from side to side. It says, which intensifies 3539, which means to use the mind. Properly, movement from one side of an issue to the other to reach a balanced conclusions. Full-orbed reasoning is critical thinking. It means thinking that literally reaches across to the other side of a matter. So here's what's interesting. Understanding is literally you thinking and going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Okay? That is the transient mind going back and forth. Okay? And you have spiritual darkness in that moment when you're going back and forth in the logic. Okay, the next one here is alienated from, and in the Greek it's 526, and it's to estrange away, passively and figuratively to be non-participant, alienated, or be an alien. So when you're alienated from God, you're not a participant. You cannot participate in the spiritual realm, okay? When you have that logical thinking going back and forth. And the word ignorance in Greek, it's number 52, and it's basically a want of knowledge. Ignorance, or especially of divine things. So I've always said ignorance is just a lack of knowledge. And this is exactly what it's saying. It's like you want some knowledge, but you want things that are especially of divine things. That's where you're lacking. It's where you're ignorant of things. I thought that was interesting that it pointed out that it's a lack of divine things. Now, the word hardness is Greek 4457. And it's obviously, it means hardness, or it means a kind of marble. It's a callus formed on a fracture of a bone. So when you break a bone, you get the formed of the callus. But figuratively, the callousness or hardness in general, it's originally petrification, hardness, then the result of this. And it says metaphorically applied to organs of feeling, meaning insensibility, numbness, obtuseness, dulling of the faculties of perception, and deadness. I'm going to come back to this in 1 second. And the word heart in Greek is 2588, and it's the word cardia. And it means the effective center of our being and the capacity of moral preference. Okay, so let's check this out. So, the hardness of the heart. It's the organs of feeling. It's the meaning of insensibility, numbness, obtuseness, and the dulling of the faculty of perception in the affected center of our being. Okay. So when you're thinking and your logic going back and forth and back and forth, you are separating yourself from God, and you have a lack of knowledge of divine things because you have dulled the faculties of your perception in the affective center of our being. So the center of our being is our heart. That's the mind of Christ. That's how you walk in the unseen. That's how you live from the unseen, is from within. It's the knowing. And when you walk in that thinking back and forth, right, you alienate yourself from God and you harden that affective being. You cannot walk in that knowing. It literally cuts off the knowing when you walk in the logic. Okay? So I have here, you are a non-participant in the things of God, and you lack knowledge of divine things due to your heart's perception that is blind due to using logic. Living from the knowing is not thinking about yesterday, tomorrow, or rationalizing how or what. Living from the knowing is living in the present moment, resting and trusting. This is big here, okay? Thinking, trying, doing is spiritual darkness. It's killing the power to the manifestation. You're literally cutting everything off when you think logically, when you're like, how do I do this? What do I need to do? How should I affirm this? What should I do? Should I say this? Should I meditate? I don't know. Well, last year, this is what happened last year. Last year, this happened, then this happened, and then my SP did this. And then, I'm afraid that if I don't get them back, then this is going to happen. That is all killing your manifestation. Let me just recap it right here, because it says you have to put off the former conversations to the old man, which is corrupted. Anything that you are doing, trying, that is not in the present moment is killing your manifestations. It's killing it. because it's corrupted. You're doing it from the carnal man. You're doing it from the little me. And until you step into that knowing, until you step into that heart of who you truly are, you're always going to be trying to manifest from the little me, and you're going to always be trying to affirm and do all of these things, and you're going to be in spiritual darkness and alienated from God. Let's say that again. So you'll be a non-participant in the things of God, and you lack knowledge of the divine things. The divine things are the unseen. It's where everything exists. Everything exists in the unknown. You are all that is. And all that you need and all that you want and all that you've ever desired is all within the unseen. But you are going to be spiritually blind to seeing anything as long as you stay in that how, what, when, where, what if I do this? How many affirmations do I need to do? That's all dead. That's all the dead reality. And I put on here, Galatians 6:14. It says that I and the world are dead. It says that the world has been crucified to me and I have been crucified to the world. I put, you should not be living from a dead, seen reality. You live from the life within the unseen, okay? If you are walking and living and focused on the circumstances of what you can see or hear or touch, that is all a dead reality. The physical reality is dead. It's just a mirror of what's within you, okay? Remember, in Hebrews 11:1, it says that now faith is the substance. Faith is the substance. It's not doing. It's not affirming. It's not any of those techniques. There's no pixie dust here. There's no magic trick. It's just you being you is what you are experiencing. And a lot of people, what they do is they start telling the same story over. Well, last year, this is what happened. What do I do about this? What do I do about that? I don't know how to get myself out of this problem. You're going back and forth in your understanding. And it says you're going literally from side to side, and you become a non-participant in the divine things. That's what's cutting everything off. That's how you can end it right now. Turn off the thinking. Turn off the doing and the trying and the wanting and the needing. I got to have this. Turn all of that off and just focus on the present moment. Do what you need to do in the present moment and go from the knowing that everything is perfect, that I'm living my best life right now. Everything is given. Everything is known within you. You know this is true because you're trying to figure it out and you can't put your finger on it. But the problem is you're not supposed to put your finger on it because that's logic. Okay? That's the ignorance that's hardening your heart. That's excluding you from this life that you're trying to manifest. So think about that. Think about how this is already done. It's already been completed. Okay? Thinking, trying, doing is spiritual darkness. It's killing the power to the manifestation. Just leave it all go, rest, trust, and let the divine flow for you.